And good evening, everybody. How are we doing? This is the Thoughts of Freedom podcast. I haven't put anything up in a couple weeks. Had a few health problems, but back up in action, ready to go. Got a few things to talk about this evening. It's going to be very controversial, especially with all this censorship and bullshit. Because I'm going to call it out exactly how it is tonight. I'm not going to talk in code. I'm not going to talk anything. I'm going to speak facts. I'm going to speak truth. Period. End of story. So anyways, let's hop in to do it. I hope everybody's having a lovely evening. I just had a nice dinner. So I'm ready to go. So first topic that I want to really jump into is the whole State of Israel and Gaza concept. What is really going on? What is happening? What are they telling you? What are they not telling you? Who do people support? What do people believe? Are people believing what mainstream media promotes? Are people believing what social media promotes? Or alternative media? Are there eyewitness accounts? Do we have paid informants? Do we have Central Intelligence Agency information? Do we have Mossad information? Do we have Israeli Secret Intelligence Service information? Funny that their abbreviation is ISIS, but I digress. So I'm sure a lot of you who are wide and awake and aware have heard of a lady governor, pretty sure it's the state of South Dakota. Don't quote me. My computer's freezing up on me. Just trying to bring up the article about it. Of the governor of South Dakota making new hate speech law. Governor Noam. Kristi Noem, who for a while sounded good in the beginning. All about freedom and all that. But then we get to something called House Bill 1076, which requires the consideration of the definition of anti-Semitism when investigating unfair or discriminatory practices into law. So what does this mean? So it means the changing of definitions and words. First of all, what is Semitic? Semitic is a group of people from the Middle East. Arabic people are Semitic. A lot of Ethiopian people are also Semitic and speak Semitic. European Jews are not Semitic, nor do they speak Semitic. They speak Yiddish, which is a mix of European Hebrew put together. And like I said tonight, guys, this is a very controversial subject. I'm not against anybody. I do not hate any particular person or group. I don't think really we need to hate people, but we do need to be educated. And we do have the right to judge or talk as long as you do not initiate violence for no reason. I hope most people can agree with me. So we're going back to the so-called horrific terrorist attacks on the state of Israel on October 7th of 2023, with this shocking spike in anti-Semitic acts of hatred around the world, including some isolated incidents right here in the state of South Dakota, said Governor Noem, and I quote, "I am very proud to sign this historic bill to keep our Jewish people secure. I hope more states will follow our leadership." So here we go. We are trying to legislate morality, which is contrary to the Second Amendment of the Constitution, which Congress shall make no law respecting or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press thereof. So we have people swearing an oath to the Constitution to uphold it, to where they turn right around and they actually take a dump on the document they are actually swearing an oath to. In my mind, that is an oath breaker. If you are going to be a part of government, which I've talked about in a couple of podcasts before, technically it is not the republic government, it is a corporate government as of 1871. But anyways, if we wanted to stay on those principles, and we want that Constitution to apply to all American people, you have to be educated, you have to read, you have to study, you have to understand what it all means. Just like they try and tell you ignorance of the law is no excuse. But yet, nobody teaches anybody anything about the law, do they? It's kind of funny how that works, because that's on you to understand the law. And most people don't, so that's why they hire a lawyer. And when you get into the legality terms, technically hiring a lawyer, you are admitting to the court that you are of unsound mind. So therefore, you hire a lawyer to represent your body or persona, because in layman's terms, you're too stupid to do it. But I digress. Let's get back more into this article here. So, like I said, it says the bill defines anti-Semitism and makes it easier to prove when discriminatory conduct is motivated by so-called anti-Semitism. This important and impactful legislation will ensure the safety of Jewish people and strengthen South Dakota's discrimination laws. So the whole 354 Jewish people that live in South Dakota. Now, I'm going to point out a couple things. While on the television or internet, if anybody was tuned in while she was speaking and this was going on, you not only had the United States flag there, you also had a State of Israel flag presented. So tell me, which one is it? Because if you're one country, you should only be flying one flag. Not a Ukrainian flag, not an Israel flag, but your own country flag. A little more down the road, I'm going to tell you exactly what flag that is. The flag we fly today is still the battle flag of the United States. Hasn't changed since the Civil War. Because there's always a war being declared. It doesn't matter if it's a war on drugs, war on poverty, war on epidemics. It's just constantly being renewed. So as we climb into this bill a little bit more, Governor Noam was joined by Elon Carr, the CEO of the Israeli American Council for Action. Now, this nationally renowned Jewish leader and founder of the Jacobin Society, Dan Rosen, Rabbi Dr. Mark Goldfeder, the director of the National Jewish Advocacy Center, Rabbi Mendel Apowitz of the Chabad Jewish Center of South Dakota, Renee Schreiber on behalf of Yinam Cohen, Consul General of Israel to the Midwest, Jordan Cope from Stand With Us, the prime sponsors of the bill, Representative Fred Deutsch and Senator Jim Melhoff, and many other prominent Jewish leaders. So let's get this straight. The governor of an American state is trying to pass a law that is represented by prominent Jewish leaders. Stop and pause right there for a minute. It's not saying American leaders, Jewish leaders. Now, this is where the problem comes in. Why are another country's leaders putting together laws for America? And this isn't just about anti-Semitism. This goes into, you could be criminally prosecuted for not agreeing with a certain something. And like I said, you cannot legislate morality. Prove me wrong. So as we get into it, this is an important and urgent time, said Elon S. Carr, CEO of the Israeli American Council and former U.S. Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. Where do they make this shit up? Where do they come up with it? It's like they got these U.S. Special Forces envoy to combating anti-Semitism, and they're not even Semites. That's the problem. They're not Semites. Palestinians are actually considered Semites. It is a group of ethnic people that are darker skinned. Not Ashkenazi European Jews who came from Khazar and Russia. I mean, we are living in some crazy-ass times today, people. Crazy-ass times. And yet, so many are sucked into the cult of personality, they don't even understand what's what and who is who. A lot more people are waking up, but, I mean, if nobody stood up to this bill being passed, there's some serious problems. Between AIPAC and everything else, and every other politician pretty much being a dual citizen of America and Israel, is considered really a conflict of interest. How can you represent American people if you're actually bipolar, if you will, a citizen to two different /countries? You cannot have two masters. You're either for one and against the other. And it always seems like it's against us, the American people. So what in the hell is going on today? I mean, this has been going on for a long time. You go back to the Balfour Declaration and things like that, do some research on this stuff. And when we start talking about rabbis and whatnot, majority of them read the Talmud, not the Bible, which you would call the Torah, plus the New Testament. But the Talmud is very similar to the Bible, but actually speaks very derogatory terms against Jesus and against anybody who is not so-called Babylonian Jewish, because it is the Babylonian Talmud that they practice out of. And this is just fact. And if you read the Babylonian Talmud, which I have, you are considered a goy. You're a Gentile. You're no different than a cow. You cannot own property. It's kind of weird today, especially in America, over the last 100 years, which is kind of in the vicinity of when the Federal Reserve System came in, that nobody in America actually owns property. You have an interest in the property, but you don't own it. The corporation, government, or banks, which are all merged together, which is fascism. That's another important thing for people to understand. The merger of government, business, and religion is fascism. Period. End of story. Whether you want to slime things up and call it Nazism, communism, socialism, they're all the same thing. A hint of different flavors, but all the same thing to make the same objective. Man. But let's continue. So, we are deeply grateful to Governor Noam and to the state legislature, especially the two Jewish leaders, Rep. Deutsch and Senator Melhoff, for showing principled leadership and for embodying the best of American values, given the horrors of October 7th and the appalling rise of anti-Jewish violence and discrimination since. This could not have come at a more important time. Really? So since October 7th, according to the articles, anti-Semitism has skyrocketed across this country by 400%. And a part of the problem is you cannot fight something you cannot define. So, said Mark Goldfeder, director of the National Jewish Advocacy Center. All right, so he's saying, the director of the Jewish Advocacy Center is saying, you cannot fight something you cannot define. So they're going to make up their own definition now. We're going to change definitions of words because we don't want anybody saying anything against us. But because we are the so-called chosen ones, we are the Jewish people, you have to make laws that say you cannot say anything. You cannot disagree with us, or you're a criminal. You have to side with us, and that's it. What kind of fucking bullshit is that? Seriously, what kind of fucking bullshit is that in the so-called land of the free and home of the brave? And I'm telling you people, wake up. Before it's too late, wake up. So let's continue. By adopting this bill and the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. Oh, so it gets even crazier. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of it. Oh, okay. So are we going into two totally different definitions, or are we going to make up one where two different organizations and so-called Jewish leaders come together to decide we're going to make up a new definition of a word? South Dakota has been sent a clear message that there is no place for hate in this state. So, who's saying it's hate? Who defines hate? And in a free country, you have a right to like something or not like something. You have a right to disagree or agree. That is what made us a strong nation. During our founding, there were many disagreements, but they were able to agree on a certain 10 principles, which was the Bill of Rights, who said did not come from government, but came and was endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights that the government is to protect, not affect, protect. So if a Jewish child in South Dakota is going to be more safe and more protected, it's going to be because what we did here today, said Rabbi Mendel. So, writing something down on a piece of paper is making the Jewish child safe. If you really dive into a type of article like this, it really is actually a racist article. Even by their so-called standards, because they are creating segregation. You are trying to protect a certain so-called class or religious or ethnical group over another. Isn't that the very word definition of discrimination? I mean, it literally is fucking laughable, people. It is laughable. Let's go on. So, after signing this bill, what this bill actually does is if you disagree, say something that they do not agree with, they can allegedly use the force of law to come and arrest you and lock you up for a so-called hate crime. My Lord. Do you see how easily these certain people are eating and eating and eating at the very fabric of American society and culture and values and beliefs? They are literally eating every single piece of the Bill of Rights, one by one. Just biting and chewing it right off. And ain't nobody doing shit about it. Excuse my language, but sometimes it's actually scary when you stop and think about it, especially for our children, regular American people. Now, it's up to anybody else who you want to side with or agree. Like I said, that is the freedom of speech and choice. There is no law that can be made to force you to pick something over another. If somebody's doing something wrong and immoral and you see it for what it is, that's what you choose. So in my mind, and many other people's minds, if you have to legislate something and call it a crime, it means somebody is being protected higher up. And censorship and information, again, is constantly being bombarded and under attack. Now, I'm not saying anything bad against the real Jewish people. Nothing bad at all. I'm just talking about people who are pretending to be something that they're not, and getting American politicians to sign laws and introduce bills to legislate protections and benefits and more rights to somebody else than us. Just like you heard of the other federal judge who says the so-called illegal immigrants have rights to firearms, that it is unconstitutional. But yet, as American people, you got to go through all these different hoops and paperwork in a lot of states because you got to get a permission slip. How does an illegal alien, so-called, or immigrant, get a permission slip if they have no documentation to say who they are? So you can just make up any name you want, and what? You can walk in and just go get a so-called birth certificate and social security card and driver license with a made-up name if you're illegal? No. The reason why that works, and it kind of ties back into my previous episode of the definitions of the federal government and what a U.S. citizen actually is. Because like I said, if you're a U.S. citizen, you are foreign to the state that you live in. You're a federal citizen. And the federal government has authority over you. So that's why you have to get a permit. And usually neither state constitution or federal constitution actually applies to you. Because the 14th Amendment just says all persons, which definitions of persons is actually corporations, legally, born or naturalized in the United States and or reside in the state thereof, or under the jurisdiction of the United States. So guys, this stuff is really important, and things are moving at a rapid rate. There is so much information. I know people are getting bombarded with things on a daily basis, and it is hard to keep track of certain things because they dangle other topics in front of your face while they swoop in the more dangerous ones. Take in like Planet Fitness. Everybody's going crazy over Planet Fitness because of a so-called guy, or identifies as a woman, was in the bathroom shaving in a woman's bathroom. And that's been a high press story, especially on social media. But what's not getting talked about when these stories come up is what they're doing behind the scenes. Because every major story that pops up, another piece of your freedom is actually being eroded behind it. Just like during the Super Bowl. It was funny how Congress actually got together on Super Bowl Sunday night now, isn't it? Remember, guys, stay awake, stay vigilant, stay optimistic, and educate yourselves and children. And make sure you become well-trained, physically and mentally. Know how to survive, know how to grow food, know how to get water, know how to build shelter, know how to provide yourself heat. Especially having tons of freedom seeds. And freedom sticks. Because you need all of those. Because we're losing quickly. I still love this country. I'm very blessed. And my family and all of us who have actually were born here and are older. So it's very important we do not lose this, guys. It's very important. Anyways, I hope you guys like this show. Next week, we're going to be talking about a completely different topic. What is the Earth? Which we all know is highly controversial. But who's right? Who's wrong? Who's actually lying? What's the evidence? Who's supplying the evidence? We'll get into that on next week's episode. You guys have a good night. Stay safe. God bless.